That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Here we go. I know a lot of people were upset with the video yesterday that I didn't make that many adjustments to our rookie wide receiver rankings. And as I've said time and time again, I mean, really, the NFL Combine is not that predictive for future NFL wide receiver success. I mean, yes, we dropped David Bell down, but outside of that, we only had to make some minor tweaks. Well, the running back position is a completely different story because at the running back position, it is so hard to base your evaluation on production alone as we can with wide receiver because that production is so dependent on the college offense that they are playing in. I mean, we know this about running backs in the NFL. We know this about wide receivers in the NFL. The perfect example is, let's go over to Minnesota. I mean, the second you have Dalvin Cook going down, you know Alexander Mattison, a top 3 running back because the workload that he is going to see and the offense that he's playing in. I mean, of course, he's a talented guy, but nobody's arguing that he's a top 5 running back in the NFL in terms of pure talent. And at the wide receiver position, we simply don't see that happen. I mean, you have Mike Evans or Chris Godwin or Antonio Brown, whoever it may be going down. And then in a Tom Brady-led offense, you can't start Tyler Johnson with confidence. It's not like Tyler Johnson becomes a top 10 wide receiver. It's because the receiver position, and there are so many numbers to back this up, and we have done so over 100 pages in our rookie draft guides before, and I'm going to do so again this offseason. But it is, I don't want to say exclusively dependent on your talent to generate separation and to win at the catch point and to create yards after the catch. But the wide receiver position in that collegiate production is so much more dependent on actual talent than it is at running back, where a ton can be driven by situation. So with our running back evaluation, a lot of it comes down to these NFL Combine benchmarks. We want to see these running backs, and we have statistically proven this in depth over 100 pages, that you need to see those guys come out. And what are some minimum thresholds that we have seen over the past 5 years in the NFL? You need those running backs to have at least a 30.0 BMI. You need those running backs to run at least a 4.60 40-yard dash. And we also want to see an 8.5% team college target share, indicating that the running back can and will be used in the receiving game. I mean, the perfect example of this is someone like Najee Harris, someone like Jonathan Taylor. These were 2 running backs that a lot of people questioned the receiving game capabilities coming out of college. However, if you just looked at the college target share rather than the raw receptions per game, you actually had a good indication that they would be able to catch passes at the next level. And of course, we need to see NFL draft capital. As of now, we can only really look at projected draft capital, and a lot of this is going to change. Someone like Kyren Williams, I can tell you, I mean, he's been getting mocked to go in the 3rd round, but I can guarantee you that is not happening now after his day at the Combine. But I think that should be it for a quick brief intro on how we are really looking at these rookie running backs. And like I've said, I've proven this over 100 pages with in-depth historical research. I'm sure most people have read our Dynasty rookie draft guides. If you haven't, of course, we'll have another one released this offseason. But please go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And let's dive into it. And I mean, coming into the NFL Combine, I had 2 running backs in our top tier ranked back-to-back. Now, we updated this a couple weeks ago, put Breece Hall at number 1, but now there's nobody else in this tier with Breece Hall. Breece Hall is the standalone running back 1 in this draft class. And not only is he the standalone running back 1 in this class, I'm moving him up to my first rookie off the board. I actually had him behind the combination of Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, and Drake London. But with Treylon Burks not dominating the Combine as expected, not dropping him down a ton, but it is a minor red flag. And with Breece Hall coming out and really showing us that there are no red flags at all on his profile, that he will get the NFL draft capital that we're looking for. Sign me up. I mean, I was slightly worried there was a 10 to 15% chance that Breece Hall came out, he didn't run the 40-yard dash, or he didn't have the adequate BMI that we were looking for. Because if you looked at what he was listed for in college, I'm pretty sure he was listed at like 6'1", 217, which not a great BMI for someone that's 6'1" to weigh 217 pounds, but we know that college listings are never accurate, which is why I was a little bit hesitant to rank these running backs aggressively in the first place. Breece Hall, better than that. 5'11", 217, same weight at a smaller height, so he's a little bit more of a bigger build. He has that 30.2 BMI that meets our minimum threshold to be a 3-down running back in the NFL, and also surprisingly fast. I was not expecting this. Please let me know if I'm just an idiot, but a 4.44 official 40-yard dash. Now, if these are off by 0.01, don't go down to the comment section and go, oh my God, Mason, you fool, you idiot. These are pulled off of NFL.com and have a little blue check mark next to them. So if they're pulled off of NFL.com, pretty sure that they're going to be very close. So he crushes the 40-yard dash. And of course, this is a running back that also went out there and proved that he was a more than capable pass catching option at Iowa State his junior season, where he had 10.7% of his team's college target share. So he is the speed, he has the size, the receiving game capability. Now, he was a borderline late second, early third round NFL draft pick in mock drafts up to this point. But after checking every single one of these boxes, I would be confident saying Breece Hall will get that second round NFL draft capital that we look for. He will go into a starting job right away. Breece Hall, I think he's your 101. I mean, not to mention that he went out his sophomore year. He had 23 carries a game, 131 rushing yards a game. In his junior season, 3 receptions, 25 receiving yards, as we said, indicating that he is more than capable at actually having a role in the receiving game. So I was wrong. We had Breece Hall, I believe, at the 105. I think we had him behind Malik Willis coming into this for those Superflex rankings. But I think you can easily make the argument now that based on his actual NFL draft capital and landing spot, Breece Hall is in conversation to be the 101, and that's where we will have him ranked going forward. And our running back, too, I had to make an update to this. Kenneth Walker. Now, with Kenneth Walker, yeah, I mean, he had a good day at the combine. That was expected. You were expecting Kenneth Walker to be fast. He runs a 4.46. You were expecting him to be big. He goes out there and measures in at 31.16 for his BMI. Check mark, check mark. The one thing we are lacking with this profile is going to be the college receiving game capability. Only had 5.4% of his team's target share his final season at Michigan State. That is a concern. I'm not expecting him to be a great pass catching running back at the next level. So maybe you prefer him in a non-PPR format, a half PPR league, and maybe bump him down just slightly in a full PPR format. But it's not like he had a day where you have to go, okay, well, we were wrong with Kenneth. This was expectation. It's more about Isaiah Spiller not running his 40-yard dash, and that's why Kenneth Walker has to be over him, especially if we look at the projected NFL draft capital. Before the pro day for Breece Hall, I'd imagine Breece Hall goes 1 in the NFL draft as well now, but Kenneth Walker was projected to be the first running back off the board. I think that he is probably a safe bet now to be the second running back after Breece Hall in the NFL draft. I mean, regardless of what Isaiah Spiller does at his pro day. So if he's going to get the draft capital, he has the size, he has the speed. He looks like he's probably going to be a poor man's version of Nick Chubb in terms of being a talented between the tackles grinder. That is a great option on first and second down, but not really going to be able to get on the field at third down. And I know people are, always laughing when you go out there and make these comparisons. That's why you never see me draw parallels. I'm not saying that he's anything close to the running back Nick Chubb. I'm saying the role that he should have at the next level, which, if y'all know my stance on Chubb, that's not necessarily a great thing, but he will be our running back too. Definitely a tier below Breece Hall. We're going to have him below those elite level rookie wide receivers. And going over to 3, we're going to have Isaiah Spiller. We're dropping Isaiah Spiller because he does not run the 40-yard dash. And at the same time, he does not meet our minimum threshold for his BMI, 6'217". It's not a super big deal. It's not like he came out here and pulled a Kyron Williams. That would be a massive concern, but still just a minor thing that we should be looking at. The big thing is not running the 40-yard dash. There were already a lot of people with concerns on Isaiah Spiller. He's already been a running back that's trending in the wrong direction this offseason. And the main reason people are off of Isaiah Spiller is simply what we had in 2021 with him splitting the backfield at Texas A&M. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be focusing in on, the efficiency on a per touch basis. My issue with Spiller is, of course, that he went to Texas A&M in the first place, does not know how to choose a decent program, hook 'em horns, but it is what it is. Now here he actually splits the backfield his final year, and the running back next to him, Devin Achani, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, probably didn't because I'm stupid, but he has 130 carries compared to Isaiah Spiller's 179. But if you look at the total rushing yards, they're almost identical. And the reason for this is Devin actually had, 7 yards per carry compared to Isaiah Spiller at 5.6. And yards per carry is a very bad measure in terms of evaluating running back talent. As we've already discussed, running backs, are highly dependent on the situation they're placed in their respective college offenses. And that even goes on a touch-to-touch basis. You really need to be looking at the amount of defenders in the box for these running backs as well. There are a lot of different variables, but that's a red flag. You can't ignore that. And at the same time, he split usage on third down as well. He only had 25 receptions in this season. Devin had the same exact amount, 24, but who's counting? And also, proved to be more electric in that facet as well, where he averaged 10.9 yards per reception, where Isaiah Spiller was only there at 7.6. So there are a lot of red flags stacking up against Isaiah Spiller. Now, to be fair, he's been a more than capable pass-catching running back since his freshman season at Texas A&M. To go along with this, up until this point, he was projected to be the second running back off the board in the NFL draft. That's most likely going to be falling down to number 3 based on the Breece Hall combine, but he has the draft capital most likely in his favor. The receiving game capability most likely in his favor. The BMI is okay. I really need to see this 40-yard dash at his pro day. However, and of course, we're going to have to adjust for pro day times with the assumption that they are going to be a little bit faster. Well, let's go over to our next running back. Our running back 4. Y'all know I have been reluctant to talk about a lot of these guys just because so much of our evaluation is brought on by these official size measurables, by the official 40-yard dash. As we discussed time and time again, but Rashaad White, running back 4. I don't even think we can really argue this. Now, there are concerns on the profile, stays all 4 years at Arizona State, and doesn't really break out till his senior season. You never want to see a player breaking out, but freshman season, sophomore year, just completely throw him away. Doesn't even count in the case of White. And if we're looking at the boxes that we need to check, he does not hit the BMI threshold, which is another red flag. 6 foot, 214 pounds, not a big deal, still 29.02 BMI. So it's not like, he's coming out here with a 27.5 BMI where we just have to go, okay, he can't handle 15 plus touches in the NFL. So BMI, not a big issue. Small red flag. He has the speed, 4.51. But why I don't necessarily care as much about Rashaad White BMI as I would with, say, the perfect example would be Zamir White, is because Zamir White profiles to be a first and second down running back, where actually Rashaad White, he's going to be that pass catching option for a PPR format. If you look at his college target share, as we've already discussed, what you need to hit is 8.5%. If you want to get up into that elite range, if you want to be, what Travis Etienne, DeAndre Swift were coming out of college, you're up there around 12, 13% in terms of your targets on a per game basis in your college offense. White was at 18.9. 18.9. A fantastic pass-catching running back that has the adequate speed. I would imagine, based on his combine results, he actually begins to trend up NFL draft boards in terms of the mock drafts that we are looking at, where right now maybe he's projected to be a late round 3, early round 4 NFL draft pick, which of course I would hate to see. But I think that I would be very surprised if he got outside of day 2. If he was a day 3 draft pick at this point, I think that would surprise most people. At least you could see him in that Alexander Madison range, someone we previously brought up as a compensatory pick in the 3rd round. I think he'll have decent draft capital, but really you're ranking him here because the receiving game capability. Now our next running back is going to be Brian Robinson, who also has red flags on his profile. Now we're going to get to a bunch of running backs here where it's just red flag after red flag after red flag, but this is not a good running back draft class. I think we have said that at length. And here's Brian Robinson. One of the first things we need to discuss, stayed all 5 years at Alabama. Now, for any other player in any other situation, I would be just completely removing him from our draft board. But as we always talk about, if you are just looking at numbers on a spreadsheet and nothing else, you are not doing anyone a service, including yourself. You need to paint the entire picture. You need to look at the context of the situation. And with Brian Robinson, he gets to an Alabama roster that has Damian Harris, Josh Jacobs, and Najee Harris on it. What is he supposed to do? Nobody's coming out here saying Brian Robinson's better than Najee Harris, and the expectation was for him to come out and win that starting job. No, of course, that's not the argument here. The argument is maybe he is just slightly worse than Najee Harris, best case scenario, and that's why he was on the bench and he didn't get to actually play for Alabama until he was 23. We saw something very similar with Najee Harris. He was a 5-star prospect going to Alabama and kind of just sat the bench behind Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs for the longest time. And then remember, Najee Harris didn't come out until 23 years old as well, so he had his own red flag. So I think this Alabama team, I mean, even going over to receiver, as we've discussed, the team that had, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, and Devonta Smith all on the same roster, and Irv Smith Jr., if we want to throw that in. It's so damn hard to hold these players to the same standards that we would have as someone at Arizona State or where we would have someone, at Iowa State. I'm fine if they don't get on the field right away and produce. Of course, you want to see them come out at 20 years old. You want to see them come out after 3 years. Brian Robinson, you're fine with it. If we're talking about his 40-yard dash, not necessarily there. He runs a 4.63, right on the borderline, someone like David Montgomery. And then if we're looking at his size, the BMI isn't there, but on the extreme ends of it, where he is 6'2", 225, we can't be worried about that size. I know BMI really is going to matter if we're looking at running backs that are, say, 5'8" to 6 foot. Really in that just average height range. I know 5'8" is a little bit on the shorter side, but that's especially when BMI is important. Look at DeAndre Swift. We really need to see the stockiness of the running back. But if you just continue to get bigger, and taller, I'm fine if he's going to be a 29 BMI player, if he's 6'2", 225. And he was a capable receiving running back at Alabama. 8% team college target share. Not too much we need to be talking about. Now, let's go over to a running back coming out of BYU that played linebacker his sophomore year. So you really don't know what to expect. Looking at the production, it's not going to paint a clear picture, but looking at these boxes, as we've discussed, it looks very similar to Brian Robinson. He comes out 5'11", 224 pounds, so a better size than Brian Robinson. Right now he's projected to be a third-round NFL draft pick, and he ran a 4.64 40-yard dash, and he had 10% of his team's college target share. So a lot of these boxes are getting checked. Now, the worry is you play at BYU, you stay all 4 years. Now, if we're going to be making excuses for Brian Robinson and looking at the context of the situation, we have to be doing the same thing here. He played linebacker his sophomore year, a little bit of running back, a little bit of linebacker, but clearly he didn't have an exact position. So I guess we can excuse that away as well. It just looks like we're really going to be trying to pick these guys based on their landing spots and their draft capital, which players can make it into the third round. And I think both of these guys have the potential. Now let's go over to someone from Cincinnati. Let's go to Jerome Ford, who's another 4-year player. Tired of seeing 4-year. We just got talking about a 5-year option. You really want to see these running backs coming out after 3 seasons in college. But Jerome Ford, another great example. You know who was on that same exact Alabama roster with Najee Harris, Damian Harris, Josh Jacobs, Brian Robinson. Jerome Ford was there. He actually, his first and second season, he ended up having to transfer over to Cincinnati. Completely reasonable. There's one starting running back spot on a roster that has 5 NFL players. Come on. Cut him some slack. So he transfers over from Alabama and ends up having a fine pro day. Runs a 4.51. Great time. Has the adequate BMI as well. 5'10", 210 pounds. Not the best pass catcher at Cincinnati. 6.2% of his team's college target share. Another one of these guys, I hate to say it, he has multiple boxes checked. Still a red flag to go along with it. We really need to see him get drafted in the third round. You cannot have these guys falling to round 4. Now, let's breeze through these last 3 guys. I didn't even think we'd be able to get this far, but excited to do it nonetheless. James Cook, our next running back. James Cook, someone I was actually very intrigued with coming into the NFL Combine. Definitely disappointed. He comes in, and this is what is just a nail in the coffin. 5'11", 199 pounds. That's a BMI of 27.75. Now, with James Cook, very similar to Rashaad White, I guess you can make the argument that he's going to be used as a receiving down running back at the next level. It's hard. Now, we don't have early season production. I mean, early career production for James Cook because DeAndre Swift was on the roster. So he stays all 4 years at Georgia as well. Also split the backfield with Zamir White. So he doesn't have the size. He does have the speed, and he was a fine receiver in college. I probably need to lower James Cook even further than this. I probably need to lower him behind our next guy, Zamir White, the same running back pretty much as what we were talking about previously. Someone that's not going to catch passes out of the backfield, but does have the size, does have the speed. I mean, kind of has the size, BMI of 29.02. So right on that borderline, not going to make a super big deal out of it. Runs a 4.47 and at Georgia, splits the backfield with James Cook, but it's understandable. James Cook will be drafted as well. But the issue is just not a receiving running back at Georgia. Only 2.9% of his team's college target share. Not a strong reason for it outside of splitting the backfield with James Cook. But as we talk through this, I would be very surprised if James Cook could actually access any ceiling whatsoever, given his size. I think with Zamir White's potential to possibly prove that he can catch passes, and the only reason he didn't is because he was sharing the backfield at Georgia with Cook, I could at least see it in the range of outcomes for Zamir White to become a high-end running back 2 in fantasy. Unlikely, but possible. So previously, I was laughing at people for doing this, but I'm going to have Zamir White ranked over James Cook. It hurts me to do it, but let's go to our last running back, someone that I know everybody is going to be screaming at me for, and I get it. I know a lot of people wanted to throw some hype on this guy. A lot of people wanted to be excited. This is the George Pickens of the running back position where, I mean, everybody tries to one-up each other on how high they are on him. Kyren Williams, what am I supposed to say? Now, he was supposed to go early round 3 of the NFL draft. He was supposed to have, I mean, great NFL draft capital. And based on those projections, I mean, let me pull up where my previous running back rankings stood. Let me run over to flock.locals.com where you can find all our rankings, of course. And previously, I had Kyren Williams as our running back 4. I had him in tier 6 behind David Bell, George Pickens, and ahead of Carson Strong, Desmond Ridder in our Superflex rankings. And I had him at pick 12 right behind David Bell, George Pickens. I mean, in our 1 quarterback rankings and right before Christian Watson. So I was fine with Kyren Williams. I was lower than most, but that's just because people like to hype up one player and just get that circle going. We'll battle that with George Pickens a little bit later. But 4.72, 40-yard dash. 5'9", 194. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not getting the job done at the NFL level. There's nothing else to say. Maybe, just maybe you make the argument he's Devin Singletary. Let me pull this up. I know Devin Singletary in 2019 was a player that the film community loved, yada, 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 and he was small and slow. I don't even know if, Devin Singletary is faster than this. Devin Singletary, a 4.66. Devin Singletary, bigger than this. I mean, he only weighed 203 pounds, but he was 5'7", so he had a 31.8 BMI. And we've seen Singletary be able to handle 3-down workload at the NFL level. Kyren Williams won't be able to handle a 3-down workload, doesn't have the size, and he doesn't have the speed either. He's a good pass-catching running back at Notre Dame. Kyren Williams is dead. He's our running back 10. I think that should be it. Of course, thank you so much for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel. I know that a lot of people probably hated me for that Kyren Williams take, but it is what it is. I'll fight the trolls. Thank you again. Hope you have a great day. Hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow. And yeah, that should be it. Join the flock on Locals. Find the links in the description.